Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Mizan Sunday, which occurs the fourth Sunday of each month, hosted by masjidwdm Muhammad, and it's a Taleem service led by sisters of the WDM community, not intended for an all-female audience. Sorry. Today we have with us Sister Halima Abdul-Jaleel. I had an echo. Today we have with us Sister Halima Abdul-Jaleel, who's originally from Miami, Florida, and currently she's working on her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And she's currently doing her internship in this subject matter, and she currently works as a career advisor for Houston Independent School District. Her topic today would be practical and Quranic tools for stress management. Assalamu alaikum, Halima. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam. Yes, I can hear you.
I give you Sister Halima Abdul-Jaleel.
Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim.
You ready for your slides?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, I'm ready. So today I will be giving you a presentation on practical and Quranic tools for stress management. Okay. So we're going to start out with the surah. Be sure we will test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss in goods or lives, but give glad tidings to those who are steadfast, who say when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong and to Him is our return. They are those of whom descend blessings from Allah and mercy, and they are those who receive guidance. Next slide. So let's talk about stress. What is it? Stress is our psychological, meaning our mind, and our physiological, meaning our body, reaction to those events or conditions that are perceived as threats or challenges. How we internalize an event or condition is what makes the stress we perceive as negative or positive. Stress, in its essence, is neither negative or positive. Next slide. So let's talk about the negative signs of stress. So when we perceive stress as being negative, we have certain consequences that occur with our bodies, our mind, our emotions, and our behavior. What we see in our body is fatigue, headaches. We also see skin irritations such as acne or eczema. We have constricted breathing, meaning like it's hard to breathe. A lot of people associate that with anxiety. In our minds, we have worries. We also have what do you call cloudy thinking, where we're not able to process the information that is coming to our minds clearly. Um, with our emotions, we see a hiding aspect of our emotions, such as fear, um, anger, and also we have a lack of emotional regulation. As far as our behavior, we do see things like, as we saw in COVID, a lot of people weren't able to deal with stress. So we saw more abuse. We saw more um, addictions to substances. And we also saw people who weren't able to go to sleep. Next slide. Now, when we have positive ways or positive cycles for stress, we'll see things like the stress allowing us to do um, or to be motivated to do things. So, although it's often promoted as stress being as something negative, it really can be also positive if it pushes us to like our goals, if it pushes us to even get up in the morning. It could also, stress can cause us to work on our moods. It could also cause us to go towards beneficial thoughts. Next slide. So there's two types of stress. We have acute stress, which is short lived, and that's like the ones that help us um, to get up and do those things that we need to do. It allows us to focus and go against those challenges that we might not be able to do if we don't experience that stress or constriction. Um, these are those that are triggered by either flight or our fight responses. This can mean either we're going to decide from our stress whether we're going to wither or whether we're going to fight and go towards the challenge. Um, the problem occurs with stress or becomes negative when it's prolonged. So we're talking about those worries, those fears, anger, these type of things that are often triggered by relationships, financial struggles, it might even be job loss. And what happens is over time, if this stress is not released from the body, um, it causes our body to start breaking down. We have those um, hormones such as cortisol, which cortisol itself is not a bad thing. But however, if it stays in the body too long or if it's too much of it, it begins to work negatively against the body because there's not balance. Next slide. So, you might be wondering who can experience stress? Well, we all can. In fact, most people deal with feelings of stress at some point in their life, which propels them to either flight, fight, or freeze response. We're talking about adults, adolescents or teens, children, people from all various economic statuses, all ethnic groups, and all genders. Next slide. So, one thing we have to know when we talk about stress is a lot of times when we're in our strong point or uh, when we're up in life, we don't have many what we call conditions which cause us to have that negative stress. Um, we're less vulnerable to have negative stress and more prone to positive stress. So, some of the conditions that make us more vulnerable to negative stress are negative thinking, how we perceive the stress. Also, when we talk about life events, so life events can be things like we were saying earlier, a loss of a job. It could be even a loss of a loved one. And for some, maybe a video game. You never know. So it it doesn't necessarily mean that my stress or something that causes me negative stress will be the same thing that causes you negative stress. It varies from person to person. Um, Another thing that causes uh, in a that causes us to be more vulnerable to negative stress is an inability to process emotions. So if we don't know what our emotions are, we don't know how to process them. We don't know how to, if we're angry, which anger is definitely a secondary response to something else. It could be a response to fear. It could be a response to grief. These things, we are not aware, self-aware that we're even having these emotions and know how to um, better deal with them, then we're more prone to have that negative stress. And over time, that stress becomes, it starts to wear down our body and our mind. A lack of adequate sleep. So we live in a society that often tells us that when you work hard, you succeed, or sleep is for suckers. We have all these little mantras that go around, but actually, we need sleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us signs all around us, even the birds, the insects, all these different um, animals and insects, they all sleep. So those are signs to us that we do need rest and we do need sleep. And if we don't get our adequate sleep, it makes us more likely to not internalize and process uh, the stressful conditions or events in a more positive way, which causes us more stress. Um, Having a diet that's inflammatory, meaning that the foods that you're eating when they're processed in your body, they're causing inflammation in your muscles and your joints. These type of diets, they lead to more stress because your body's not able to um, process these supposedly nutrients. It becomes now a poison instead of a nutrient, which makes your body more inflamed. And studies have shown that when eating these type of diets, it makes you less likely to be able to deal with stress adequately over a extended period of time. The last one is, hold on one second. Sorry. Okay, that last one is overstimulation. So overstimulation is in our time right now. We deal with where we're overstimulated, meaning our minds are constantly going. We wake up, we open up our phones, we're scrolling. We go in the car, we're listening to the radio. Now, not saying that you have to listen to music. Maybe you're not listening to music, but the point is that your mind is constantly being stimulated and engaged. You get out of the car, you go on the computer again. You come home, you're either doing computer, TV, or maybe both. You go to sleep, you're looking at your phone again. So, where is the time for your brain to rest? Overstimulation of your mind is, it seems like you're getting more done, but actually, cognitively, you're not giving yourself a chance. You're not giving your brain a chance to power down. Even we power down our computers, or maybe we don't. I'm not sure. But if if you want to have that recharge and not be overstimulated and have your brain constantly working, then and able to better deal with stress, you have to power your brain down. Meaning, you're gonna have to unplug. Next slide. So, according to according to the Mayo Clinic, which studies, they have a lot of studies on the body, including the brain. So, resilience is the ability to adapt to difficult situations. When stress, adversity, or trauma strikes, you still experience anger, grief, and pain, but you are able to keep functioning. Meaning, physically and psychologically, you have built a resilience or a wall that makes you less vulnerable to these stressful and maybe even unanticipated events or conditions. However, resilience isn't about putting up with something difficult, being stoic, or figuring it out on your own. And we're going to talk about that later on when we talk about support systems. In fact, being able to reach out to others for support is a key part of being resilient. So, um, having a support system is one of the ways that we build our resilience. Next slide. So let's talk about eating, because we were talking about it earlier when I mentioned inflammatory foods. So in the African American culture, believe it or not, our diet historically has been, well, at least after um, being emancipated from slavery, our diet has mostly been filled with inflammatory food, meaning that fried, sugary, um, and fatty foods. It has become part of our culture. We're talking about soul food. So, foods can either support resilience or break it down. Foods that are inflammatory break down the body, and it makes us less resilient physically and mentally. Meaning, the way we process things cognitively is going to be a lot different than when we're eating inflammatory foods as opposed to anti-inflammatory foods. Next slide. So here we have a slide, and it's showing some of the ways that food can affect you negatively and cause you stress. So as we talked about earlier, 1 in 5 Americans experience extreme stress, meaning that negative stress. So what does it do to the body? Like we said earlier, it can cause headaches, dizziness, but it can also cause ADHD and ADD, meaning that your brain is inflamed to the point to where you're not able to focus. Not saying that there are not people who have this um, mental disorder, and if they eat food, it's going to go away. But if they do not eat inflammatory food, it's going to go away. But there have been studies that have shown that by eating anti-inflammatory food, their focus um, is better when they eat these foods. Anxiety, irritability, and anger. Some other effects on the body are grinding teeth, tension in the jaws, increased heart rate, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, type 1 and type 2. You even see IBS, which is often associated with stress. Um, you have other digestive disorders, such as some people might experience ulcers, or some people might have severe uh, weight gain or obesity, decreased sex drive, muscle tension, um, and then some of these prolonged um, diseases can become it can morph into something more serious. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the body and its processing of stress. So as I was saying earlier, each person um, they have a capacity for stress, um, more or less depending on the situation or the condition. Furthermore, we have differences when You talk about the way you hold or the way you hold anger. Where are you holding it in your body? For some of us, it may be our digestive tract, and that's where you would see someone who's really stressed out. They will have those symptoms in their stomach. Maybe it's our head or our cranium section. Then you will see them have more of those headaches, stress headaches, or maybe it's our heart. Maybe we're having palpitations of the heart. So those are just a couple of examples. Here are 10 foods that help to reduce stress. So we're talking about leafy greens. Leafy greens have been known to not only help with digestion, but also act as buffers when it comes to stress. Dark chocolate, carrots, grapefruits, any type of berries. Here it says blueberries, but we're also including in that blackberries, red berries, um, mulberries, which we don't see as much nowadays, and strawberries. Avocado is definitely good for reducing stress. It acts as a buffer. Any type of nuts, not necessarily peanuts because of the fatty content, but more of our almonds, pistachios, these type of nuts. Lemon balm tea, cold water fish. So we're talking about salmon. We're talking about codfish. Those fish we mostly see in the cold waters, and seeds. Next slide. Here's some more examples of anti-inflammatory foods. So we have here like I was saying, the cod. As far as the fish, the codfish, snapper, whitefish, tuna. These are cold water fish. When you talk about oils, we're not talking about canola oil. We're more talking about avocado or olive oil. And beneath it, we have green tea. So green tea has been known to help reduce stress. Now you see it as more like a trend tea. You see it in places like HEB or Kroger's, and you see it more. It's more like a trend type of tea right now, but it still has the benefits to help reduce stress, and also it helps with cognition. Some of the vegetables, you see the green leafy vegetables, some that excuse me, that many African Americans eat, collards. So collards in itself is good, but when we add fatty meats, when we add uh, a lot of salt, then that's how we often turn something that is very uh, beneficial into something else. So um, you have the nuts that I was talking about earlier, fruits. All kind of fruits are very beneficial because they have high vitamin C content, which helps with immunity. And as you know, when we're healthier and our immune system is stronger, it helps us to deal with that stress. We have herbs and spices. So a lot of you might be familiar with rosemary. It's often used with chicken, but it's also good for focus and for lessening inflammation. Next slide. So, what should we stay away from? It's the food that we like to eat. So, we're talking about our sugary donuts, cakes, um, cheese is on there too. But there's also alternatives for this. So, we're not talking about our, what is it? Cottage cheese. We're not talking about that. We're more talking about the overly processed cheese like cheddar cheese. We're also talking about, like I was saying earlier, those cooking oils, canola cooking oil, peanut oil, these type of oils, they're hard to digest, which puts more stress on your body and make you less likely to deal with, well, sorry, they put more physical stress on your body, meaning like they're harder to process. So in turn, that makes you more vulnerable because all of your energy is going towards processing this um, oil that you just ingested. Um, Also, eating processed meats. So, processed meats, sometimes we get confused. Processed meats basically are those things like hot dogs, um, not necessarily ground meat. If, say, you go to the halal meat store and you have them make you um, ground meat, that's a lot different from buying it out the store because you don't know what they put in that meat. But if you go to the halal meat store, you know that that was once a piece of chicken. You saw them put in there and they ground it up. That's a lot different than what we would see in the store because it's processed and many times there's chemicals involved in that. Next slide. Next, we're going to talk about building resilience through physical, mental, spirit, and spiritual actions. So, resilience can become stronger through reflection, management, and connection. Next slide. So, let's talk about reflection. So, in this picture, you see a couple of things, but I'm just going to point it out. So, on at the top, we have someone writing. So, back in the days before computers, there used to be a um, focus, almost a necessity for us to write, meaning we wrote down everything really. We didn't have a phone to put it in. We also wrote our feelings down. Some people they were Christian, they used the Bible. Maybe you had a journal. You write letters to relatives. So writing was a big part of our culture as we've transitioned into um, the digital world. For many of us, this has gone to the wayside and it's become less over time. But there have been studies that when you physically um, express your um, feelings or desires onto a piece of paper using a pen or a pencil, whatever you want to use, it has a different effect on your cognition, meaning like there is an imprint into your brain on whatever you're speaking about. And if you're speaking about something that's uh, stressful to you, negatively, and has caused you some type of pain, this is a way that uh, will allow you to release that. So, one of the ways to get rid of stress is to keep a journal. Not saying that you're putting all your deep, dark secrets in there, but things that are troubling you, that are bothering you, it's good to keep a journal. And also, it's even, I would say, more beneficial in that sense when you have say you have a desire, you have a dua that you're wanting for, write it down. Yes, you're speaking directly to Allah, but that's just a reminder for you of who's in control because it's definitely not you. Okay. Um, in the bottom, you see meditation. Now, some people I've heard they when you bring up meditation, they they say things like, "Oh, that's haram. You shouldn't meditate." But I will go against that, and here's why: because You don't have to meditate on a Buddhist principle or a Hindu principle. You can meditate on the words of Allah, meaning you can still do your all your little meditation moves and everything, and it could still be wrapped around du'as that you have. It could be wrapped around Islamic recitation, all these things. Um, at the top, you see a guy who's walking through the woods. So, one of the ways that you can physically reflect on Allah's creation, on your blessings that you have, how beautiful the world is to go out in nature. If you're staying in the inner city, which many of us are, it's hard, or should I say, it's harder to get rid of that stress because it's constantly in your face, or the stressful condition. It's constantly in your face. You're being overwhelmed and bombarded by uh, negative and also overwhelming visual scenes. So, a way to help to build your resilience and reduce your stress is to go out into nature. Now, luckily, here in Houston, we have a lot of parks that have trails, um, and that's a good way to go out there, connect to nature, and also reflect on those things that are positive and um, away from those things that cause you to have a negative stressful impact on your body and your mind. The picture at the bottom is a picture of a girl doing a dua or making supplication. One of the ways that we can connect to Allah and also rebalance our life and build more resilience is through recitation, reflection, and connection to Allah. Next slide. So this is a big, I would say, one of the key aspects of dealing with stress. It's understanding our locus of control. So you might ask yourself, what is the locus of control? What is it? Well, the locus of control is how we internalize, um, or excuse me, it's how we divide what we have control over or we don't have control over. So, for instance, we have internal and external locus of control. So, if a person is a person that has an internal locus of control, they often attribute their success to their efforts and abilities. Now, this doesn't mean that they say, like, oh, I don't need no help from Allah. All I have this, everything I do, I got this only for me. No, 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 no. It's not that. But it is saying that I'm able to decide or um, control what I do to a certain extent, and I'm able to make an effort to improve my state, whatever it is. A person who has an external locus of control will be that person that says, like, oh, I'm just not lucky. I don't have control over anything. There's nothing I can do. And then they forget, which we all do this sometimes. They forget that Allah has control and we can go to Allah when we need help. So instead, they focus on all the things that aren't going right, which makes them less resilient because it's stressful if you think you have no control over anything. So, next slide. All right. So, which one are you? Which one do you think you are? Are you the person that makes things happen? You try your best, you do all you can do, you make your duas, um, you try to stay focused, you change your diet, you like change everything about what you do, even when it comes down to the way you think about things, you're more aware of it. Are you that person? Or are you the person that just gives up and say, no matter what I do, it's not going to change. The government is always in control over everything. There's nothing I can do. So why bother? So you have to be aware of which mindset you're keeping, because this is either going to make you more resilient or less resilient to stress. Next slide. So, one of the ways that we can um, reduce our stress and become more resilient or change the way we perceive our stress is to do du'as. So, one of the du'as that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was, "Allah is sufficient for us, and He is an excellent guardian, and we repose our trust in Him." So, not taking it as you don't have any control over what happens in your life, but you know that Allah is the ultimate decider. So, and also with that, knowing that you're not alone. Many times when a person feels alone, they become less resilient, they become more stressed, and then that can lead to mental illness if not resolved over time. Um, Another dua, surely we belong to Allah, and to Him shall we return. O Allah, I beseech you for the reward of my hardship. Reward me and compensate me for it with something good. So that's just another way of like rethinking that event or condition that has brought you to um, stress, because that's going to decide whether the stress that you're feeling is positive or if it's working against you and it's negative. Um, Speaking about that, uh, one of the ways that we can go about uh, kind of like reframing our thinking is not only through our duas, but also by challenging those negative thoughts. Um, Is your worry based on emotions rather than logical thinking? Are there any other possible outcomes? So, if we have our du'as and our reflection on Allah, sometimes we find out that what we thought was impossible, what we thought was something that we couldn't resolve, Allah brings that other outcome to us. Next slide. So, surely God does not change the condition in which a people are until they change that which is in that which is within themselves, meaning our thinking. So, like I was talking about, challenging those negative thoughts. And many times you talk about faith, that's where the faith comes in, because maybe what you're seeing right now is not necessarily how it's always going to be. So, how do we challenge those thoughts? Um, we talk to ourselves and we ask ourselves, am I overreacting and making assumptions? Or is this really the only way to do whatever it is? Also, going back within yourself and having that internal dialogue and reflection. Have you even seen this before? Have you had this challenge? Maybe it might have been a different situation or event, but have you had this similar challenge before? That's where you build your resilience and you reduce your stress. negatively. Next slide. Okay, so the roles of supplication, recitation, reflection, and reducing negative perception of stress. So, how do we use prayer to change our perception? Here is a ayat from the Quran. All you who believe, seek help and steadfastness and prayer, for God is with those who are steadfast. So, like I was saying earlier, um, it helps you build that resilience to know that you're not alone. It also gives you a schedule. Many of us, we run on autopilot. We're not meant to run on pilot, because one one I or should I say one implication of that is that we have our prayers every day at a certain time. That's to keep you on a schedule and to keep you focused. If you are all over the place, you're going to be stressed out. So one of the ways to help you kind of like move into a focused point and to not be so spread out is to wrap your day around prayer. Now, I know that we're working, we're doing a lot of things, but if you would just meet at least one or two prayers a day, you'll find that you're going to be less stressed. Because while you're taking a break from the hustle and bustle of whatever you're doing, another way is to change our perception through recitation. Allah says, O mankind, there has come to you a direction from your Lord and a healing for the disease of your heart, and for those who believe, a guidance and a mercy. So Allah is telling you that when you contemplate on Him, it makes it a lot easier to deal with your situations. Because why? If you are in constant remembrance of Allah, then you know where you came from and you know who's in control, ultimate control. Next slide. All right, so another way that you can help to reduce stress is through mindfulness exercises. So some of you might have heard about this. This also has become a trend, excuse me, in the past couple years, with people promoting it, because of especially during and after COVID, you've seen a lot more of this mindfulness. But what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is basically becoming aware of you, how you feel, your environment, paying attention to those small things. So I'm sure, like, we probably heard that saying before, um, pay attention to the details. This is similar to that, but on a larger scale. So, some of the ways that you can become more mindful is to see something special in every person you know. So, that would be like more focusing on those positive aspects as opposed to the negative aspects, because we all are negative and positive. Um, Stop looking at your phone while eating a meal. So this is really big, especially in my household. This is my pet peeve. It really is. And the reason is because when you are looking at your phone, your focus is not on what's going into your body, which is nutrients. Hopefully, it's nutrients. Your focus is on something that's grabbing your attention. So, meaning we digest our food better when we're intentional in what we are doing. So, let's go back to du'as and prayers. So, before we eat, the best practices would be to thank Allah for what we have, you know, to like really be appreciative of that. You're less likely to be appreciative of what you're consuming if your mind is consumed with something else. So, one of the ways to bring it back to becoming aware of just how blessed you are is to take away the phone or even the TV. I know some people don't like that, or the TV while you're eating, so you can concentrate more on your blessings because we are very blessed. Even if we only eat one meal a day, that is a blessing from Allah. So that's one of the ways to help reduce stress and become more mindful. Go outside. I know people say Houston is hot. Yes, I get that. But we need the vitamin D. It fuels our body. We're not getting enough, especially nowadays, because many of us we work inside of a building most of the time, meaning that we're lacking the vitamin D. We go from our car, usually early in the morning before the sun comes up, to the building. Then we go back in the car and we go home and to go in the house. So you're missing key aspects where um, your body's being fed by the sun. Another one is uh, you can try to relieve your stress with a bath. Not everybody takes baths, but you can also do a foot bath where you put your feet into like a one of these foot spas. You can do that. Um, Observe your inner experience while watching a movie. So when you're watching a movie, it's really beneficial if you watch how your body's reacting. Is this movie even good for you? Your body will tell you. If you're watching a movie and every 5 seconds you're tensing up, maybe this may not be the best movie for you. Okay. Some of us we watch things that we know we shouldn't be watching. And guess what? Our body is subconsciously going to react. Focus your attention on your breathing. So later on, I'm going to go over 2 breathing methods. Listen to music. If you don't want to listen to music, listen to a recitation. Pamper and moisturize your body. Um, Not only is it good for your skin to be moisturized, but it's good for your cognition. It's good for releasing stress. Um, and then you could also do guided meditation in the evening and the mornings. Next slide. Management. Time management, like I was saying earlier, is a big thing. Why? Because it helps you focus your day. The worst thing that could happen to you is that you went the whole day and you didn't get anything done that you wanted to get done. Not saying that we have to be like strict on a checklist. If we don't like go straight down the checklist, but it's just a way to help release or reduce your stress and build your resilience because why? You're making progress throughout the day. You're also taking those rest moments when you pray, right? Um, and then you're giving yourself a chance to be focused on something. Next slide. Okay, emotional management. So we were speaking about this earlier. Um, this is a method like when you have emotional management, it helps you understand your emotions. So how do you feel inside? Um, in our culture, because of our traumatic background, we are often taught not to be in tune with our emotions because they're too heavy, they're too much. But we need to understand, how do we feel when something is, when we feel like something is wrong? How does our body react? Are we tense? Um, is our heart palpitating? Are we holding things inside? All these things are going to have a physical effect on our body, and ultimately make us less likely or less resilient over time. Um, where's our emotional intelligence? Meaning, like, um, how do we process our emotions? And are we using our emotions as a way to propel us towards something that's beneficial? Or are we blowing up left and right, and then it's kind of like setting us back? And then also, how do we perceive our emotions? Do we perceive our emotions as negative or positive? So if I'm not happy, then that's negative, but if I am happy, that's positive. Or do we have a balance? Meaning, if the situation is sad, then our emotions are sad, but we still use our support systems and our resources to gain support during that time. Like, how are we using our resources? Next slide. Connection. So our first connection should be with Allah. And I use this word should because maybe it's not. And as you know, in our journey throughout life, we have those times, we have ups and downs. So sometimes our connection with Allah may not be as strong as other times, but that should still be the goal. That our connection with Allah is number one. Why? Because He created us, He knows us the best. And at all times, even before we came, even before our souls were placed into our body, Allah has always had the best, or the most loving, endearing um, thoughts about us. So that's who we should go to first. Next slide. Next, we should have a connection with ourselves. That means take those deep dives. A lot of times today, we are preoccupied with the surface. Um, we don't take a deep enough dive into ourselves and others, and mostly ourselves, because maybe we don't want to deal with something. We have unresolved traumas, fears, and we don't want to deal with them. Now, this is not saying that you have to deal with it alone, but it's better to know than not to know. I often, when I'm talking to my clients, I say things like, if you were missing a limb, but you didn't know you were missing it, but everyone else knew it, would this be a benefit for you, or would this not be a benefit? Not being aware does not take that you don't have one of your limbs away. So it's better if it's something that's really traumatic or really causing you a lot of stress, that you get assistance to resolve whatever it is. Because over time, unresolved traumas, um, it makes your resilience less, and it makes your stress more. Know what you like and what you dislike. Um, this can become a challenge when we live in a society, especially as women, men too, but more women, where we're taught to people please. Now, when I say people please, I'm speaking about focusing more on someone else's needs than your own. Now this comes naturally, but there is a aspect where it goes to people pleasing when you are disregarding your basic needs, you're disregarding um, things that your values to please others. That's when it comes to be a negative as opposed to a positive. So know your likes and your dislikes. That helps you to decide what your values are, what you want to do with your life. Um, and with that, know your goals. What do you want to do in the next week? What do you want to do in the next year, 5 years? Um, and let others know what you want to do, because sometimes what you want, you can make connections with others, and that will help you achieve your goal, which will help you to reduce your stress. Next slide. So, as I was speaking about in the previous slide, uh, social support networks. So, what does that look like for you? During COVID, we had a lot of people that got isolated, and through that experiment, we found out that um, we need others. Not saying that we have to be around people 24 hours a day, but we need some kind of connection. That's how we were made. We were made as social beings. And um, whether it's friends, and when I speak about friendship, I'm talking about people who share your core values, community members, family members, partners, coworkers, or neighbors. It's good to recognize and point out who are in your social support network. These are the people that can help you reduce stress through what? Through communication, meaning like if you're having an issue, a condition, or an event that has caused you stress, you're able to connect with them through communication and um, either get the issue resolved, or um, they'll help you have some solace on whatever it is. Also, um, when you speak about social support, we're also talking about um, they're able to help you. Not only are you able to communicate with them, but you're able to delegate tasks. Uh, we none of us are superheroes, because superheroes don't exist. So we need help. So how can you use your social support network to help you delegate tasks? Can you call your friend to help you pick up your child? Can you um can you use your social support group to maybe, if you're older, to pick up groceries for you, as opposed to you going on the bus for a whole hour? How can you utilize the resources around you? Next slide. So, practical strategies. First of all, recognize your vulnerabilities, meaning those conditions that make you less resilient. And also, what are your strengths? Know your strengths. If you don't know them, ask those around you. But don't ask the negative people. Don't ask them, because they're not going to give you a good answer. Watch your thoughts. What you think about the most is usually what um, kind of comes into your life. Acquire and utilize a support system. So look for support groups that are geared around things that you like or that you're passionate about. So if you're passionate about serving the community, look for support groups that are geared around that. Um, Utilize positive family members and friends. Now, by positive, I'm speaking about not saying that they're gonna say they're gonna ignore some things that you need to work on, but they're not going to nitpick and focus on those things. They're gonna focus on building you up and making you stronger as a person. And if you don't have any of those things, or even if you do, therapists are also beneficial. Now, by saying that, I'm not saying that every therapist is good for you. You might have to, if you come across a therapist that is not, you don't really vibe with, then you can move on. Uh, Manage time through observation, delegation, and action. So, observe what's important to you, what you need to do for that week or that day. Observe how you're using your time. So maybe if you don't know how you're using your time, ask someone else that knows you. Um, Today, can you tell me what I've been doing for the day? So like if you're at work and you find that you're always scrambling, you don't have enough time, you're stressed, then you could utilize, your coworker that you trust to observe how you're using your time so that you can kind of like focus more on those things that you need to focus on and not be distracted by those other things that you're doing unconsciously. um Delegate. So like I was saying, delegate to those around you, ask for help. And then action, manage your time by doing things like checklists. You could also use, since we have a cell phone, you can use notifications. You could also use prayer, because that will definitely um, kind of gear how you break up your day. And remember that throughout the day, you need a break. You can't just go, 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 go. Because why? Because as you're going and you're not taking a break, you're building up that stress. And when your resilience is, the less resilient you are, the more prone you are to get sick, meaning colds, these type of things. Like in the education system, you see a lot of people getting colds at the end of the semester. Why? Because they're just going, 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 going without a break, and then their physical resilience goes down. So make sure when you're doing your time management that you put in breaks. And this could be breaks for rest, relaxation, and fun. So eat more anti-inflammatory foods and supplements, and make sure you hydrate often. We also sometimes we take water for granted, but water is our life source. So make sure that you're well hydrated, not overhydrated, but well hydrated. Um, Eat less inflammatory foods. These Eat less of those foods that are fried, dyed, sugar, and bleached. And then, like I was saying earlier, rest, meaning unplug, take a nap. Um, Actually, I often go into my car when I'm at work and I take a nap. It's not a long nap, but it's long enough for me to recharge. And the last thing is reflect on your blessings, whether they're big or small. One of the ways you can do that is every day doing 1 to 3 things that you could be grateful for, even if it's I'm grateful for my breath. Next slide. So I'm going to I'm going to show you 2 breathing exercises. And I spelled exercises wrong, but that's okay. All right. So the first one is called the bumblebee breathing exercise. So the first thing that we're going to do to get ready for the exercise is we're going to practice on where our breathing goes. So here in the U.S. and some other places too, we have shallow breathing, meaning that when we breathe, we don't breathe through our stomachs. So some of you may know that as babies, when we breathe through our stomachs. And this is what we call our deep breathing. So the first thing that you need to do is sit on a flat surface, or actually I guess it could be a bed. Yeah, it could be a bed. Or whatever surface you want, but make sure that it's comfortable. And then we're going to shake. We're going to do a vigorous shake of our arms. And then we're going to move our head side to side. And what we're doing by doing this is like releasing the tension that's built up while we're sitting down. And then we're going to take our shoulders up towards our head. And then we're going to drop them down. And we're going to do that 2 more times. And then when you do that, make sure you're breathing out. So I forgot that part. And we're breathing out through our nose. Okay, and then we're going to shake again. All right. So the first thing I want you to do is we're going to practice breathing. So you're going to put one hand on your chest, whichever one you choose, and one on your abdomen area or your stomach. And then when we're going to breathe in through our nose, and I'm going to show it to you, but we're going to breathe in through our nose, and then we're going to blow out through our mouths. Okay? So in through our nose. So what you should see is that your chest, when you're breathing in, your chest is going up and your stomach is going out. And then when you breathe out, your stomach should be going in. I'm sorry. Hold on. Wrong. I said that wrong. So when we breathe in, so our chest is going out and our stomach should be going out. Our chest going up, stomach going out. And then we breathe in. Our chest should be going in and our stomach should be going also down. Okay? So we're going to do that 3 times. All right. So now the breathing exercise that I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you one actually. And then the other one, if you want it, you could send me a email and I'll send it to you. So first thing we're going to do is press our lips together. And that's what you're going to need to do when you're breathing out. And it should make this sound. I'm going to show you. So you'll feel a vibration. And we're going to do that 3 times. Okay, so that's the bumblebee. And the other one that I'll send to you is called the square breathing. Next slide. Okay, so another thing and the last thing that I'll talk about is mantras. So mantras are those things that you say to yourself, those positive thinking things. And I have here three that you can use immediately. They're short. If you're feeling any kind of negative stress, and or you're feeling anxious, or you feel yourself getting angry or fearful, one thing that you can say to yourself is, I am safe. And you could practice the breathing. If you feel safe enough, you could practice the breathing exercise along with that. I am healthy and I am whole. So these are just three of the mantras that you can say. And if you know any duas, you could say those also. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.
Alhamdulillah, Sister Halima. Very insightful, very useful information for those of us who, all of us actually, because I know all of our listeners, we experience stress in some form or another. I was particularly inspired um, just by some of the practical things we don't necessarily think about doing, but just acknowledging first of all that we're actually experiencing stress and managing it through the diet in particular, and then taking time to reflect, whether that's via du'as, whether that's doing meditation, and getting clear on what we can control and understanding what that looks like. And you gave us some very practical tips on breathing, and I really appreciate your sharing your expertise with us in this area. We'll put your email address in the comment section for those who want to connect with you on how to perform more of the breathing exercises. But we want to thank you for your time taken out today with
You're
us
welcome.
here, and we appreciate you. And we want to invite you back once you finish and share some more insights with us on, things that you've learned through your practice and things that you've learned that can help us as a community move forward and just be more resilient as a whole. So, inshallah, we'll say goodbye to Sister Halima, and we'll invite the audience to continue tuning in each Sunday with us for Taleem, on Fridays for Juma. And we, inshallah, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Assalamu alaikum.